Noisy pixel.
I'm sure we've all had the dream of flying. Well, developer Sprite has taken that premise and turned it into their newest visual novel to come west, Aokana, 4 Rhythms Across. While the premise alone might not seem like the foundation of a must-read visual novel, there's plenty more to this story that can make it just that.
Yeah.
Aokana 4 Rhythms Across introduces the main protagonist, Hinata Masaya. At one point in time, he was one of the top players in a futuristic sport known as flying circus. However, after losing something more than just a competition, he stepped back from the game and attempts to live a regular life. One day, he comes across a girl named Asuka who is new to the area and doesn't know a thing about its customs. You see, the primary way of transportation here is using flying shoes. However, Asuka hasn't adapted to these futuristic shoes, so Masaya decides to help her. It's from here that his homeroom teacher takes notice and instructs him to teach her full time after school until she learns how to use them properly. However, there happens to be an ulterior motive to this in hopes of getting him back into flying. Well, in more ways than one, it works, and he finds himself coaching not only Asuka, but also a team of his friends to be the best flying circus club. Within the first few hours of Aokana, Masaya and the entire cast are easily the most likable cast of characters. Each character is unique, but they don't have overbearing personalities. In terms of characteristics, this allows Asuka's airheadedness to stand out but not become annoying, and she steals the spotlight in many scenes. The other supporting cast members each have their own complex reasons for being a part of the group, and it shows in their responses and the way that they present themselves. There are never moments of them doing something that isn't in their wheelhouse, and instead, they each have their moments of growth during the story, which develops over time. Being the instructor, Masaya is there to help them become the best flying circus club that they can be. During matches, he'll instruct them on what to do, and they typically listen. A parallel of this happens off the field, where he learns how to take advice from his friends. Becoming comfortable with flying circus again isn't his only hurdle, but it plays a massive part in his growth as the main protagonist. The people around him are what brings out this greatness, and it's rather exciting to witness. There are also a few antagonists in this story, and they are each as interesting to learn about as the main cast and get their own place in the story. The entire story plays out like episodes of an anime, even including a post-credits tease for the next episode, which leads to my point of how amazing the animations in the game are. From flying through the sky to animated key events, Aokana doesn't hold back. The high-quality animation bleeds into the game's character illustration, which is impressive and memorable. I should mention that along with a ton of CG scenes, there are a lot of ecchi CGs present and feature some tasteful panty shots. The good thing about these scenes is that they don't feel out of place and flow nicely with the game's story. There's an adult patch available, which leads me to my only gripe with the game, the romance. Yes, Aokana has romance routes, but they feel extremely lacking compared to how excellent the writing for these characters is. The romance felt more like an afterthought here rather than something that was developed throughout the game. Thankfully, for the story itself, the developers seemed to know this and only featured the adult scenes very late in their respective characters' routes. These scenes are incredibly vanilla, and if you're going into this game for the age scenes alone, then there's probably a better way for you to spend 20 hours of your time. Aokana gets to the point during its world building that you feel as if you are a part of it. It takes time delivering some of these heavier things such as rules of flying circus and character backstories, but there's no rush here either because you can't help but feel as though you're watching an anime. I can only attribute this to the game's updated CGs of up to 1440 resolutions for this release. The soundtrack of Aokana plays well with each of these scenes and changes periodically. There's a ton of tracks here and a theme for each heroine, which are all impressive compositions. Aokana 4 Rhythms Across is a story about friendship and recovering from the past. The characters in this story rely heavily on their friends, but only to highlight their strength. For example, Asuka might be airheaded and clumsy, but she is also fearless with any obstacles in her way. Each character feeds off of her courage and then offers their strength to the group. Sadly, the romance in the game doesn't stick and feels a little out of place, but that doesn't shadow the game's greatness. There are multiple endings and some excellent moments of storytelling within its 30 hours of gameplay. Aokana 4 Rhythms Across does does a lot right with its presentation and story that I quickly found myself immersed. The story wasn't something that I thought I'd be attached to at first, but after the opening act, I was hooked and cheering these characters on until the very end. Noisy Pixel is giving Aokana 4 Rhythms Across a 9 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.